I have waited. Oh no, Andrew, you're off screen. I have waited 152 days to say this. Hockey fans, SDPN fans, welcome back to Game Over. My name is Lauren. We have lost Rachel. I'm going to bring her back in one quick second. Obviously, it's different. Obviously, it's Game Over Toronto, and Andrew is hanging out on the other side of the screen, and that is because we have the very exciting thing of Game Over crossovers happening for the very first time in SDPN history. So, welcome to Game Over. Rachel and Andrew, welcome to Game Over Toronto, guys.
Thanks.
I love this.
Right? I love that. In true SDPN and Game Over fashion, we have technical difficulties on the first stream of the season. So, like I said, welcome back to Game Over. My name is Lauren Williamson. On the far right hand of your screen, we have the wonderful Andrew Berkshire. And in the middle is my good friend, Rachel Dory. And it has been a long time. 152 days, guys. How was your summer? We'll talk about the game in a second, but...
Well, first, I want to say how talented is Lauren here on the fly, introducing the show and cutting these windows to make it fit into our little overlay at the same time. This is why Lauren's here.
It's a major slay. Lauren, you're killing it right off the hop. Things we'd love to see. You know what? Lauren is in like Austin Matthews form. She came game one. She brought the heat.
Yes. And Austin Matthews with 3 goals did the same thing. It was very close. I didn't know until literally 67 seconds was left in the game that the Leafs were even going to survive. And it was a big push. It was a crazy game on both sides. Andrew, did you think at one point the Habs were going to lose? Because I thought the Leafs were going to lose most of the game.
Oh, I thought after the second period it was over, right? Yeah. The Habs last year were like really terrible in second periods, so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised at how that second period went. But I'm gonna say something that's like maybe a little bit controversial here because we all know Toronto's a better team. Toronto outshot them, probably outchanced them. I haven't checked. I think they were extraordinarily lucky to get out of that game ahead. I think they got a ton of calls go their way that were really iffy, and they had a bunch of goals go in that probably shouldn't have gone in. Jake Allen's such a weird goalie. Like 2 out of 3 of Matthews' goals probably shouldn't have gone in. Noah Gregor's goal shouldn't go in on an NHL goalie. And then in OT, he makes like 4 spectacular saves. Like he's such a weird goalie. But I think this one, I don't know. I think this game sums up why so many Toronto fans hate this team. Because the way that they celebrated when they like tied it up, and like you see the bench just like go nuts, and like I don't know, I wouldn't be like celebrating that much about this game. I feel like this should have been like business as usual, heads down, out the door game. I know I'm not against celebrating.
No.
They didn't. Andrew's really against fun. One. That's actually what I'm getting.
I am against fun.
Yeah, his official title is Director of Game Over and Director of No More Fun. Yeah, it was definitely a game that I was prepared to say the Leafs deserved to lose. For the first period, every single thing that I wrote in my famous notes was pretty much bad. Like it was just really bad. Like the Leafs just look so scattered right out of the gate, and it's crazy how much the Leafs look like they were still in preseason, like a first game of the preseason, and the Habs are like, oh, it's regular season. We're making crisp passes, and the Leafs, like, how many times did TJ Brody fall? Like at least 3. And it is just
a rough night.
It was just bad. It was just really bad. They won by the skin of their teeth. And, you know, lots of people would say they won the playoff round last year by the same thing. But that's last year. This is this year. And I'm just glad that Josh Anderson didn't score. If I'm going to be totally honest, like we didn't get shut out by Jake Allen, and Josh Anderson did not score. That is a win, and on top of the extra point in overtime and the shootout.
I think I look at this, and I wrote it in my column earlier today, my betting column. Like the Leafs in Montreal are completely and utterly incapable of just playing a normal hockey game. Every time they play, some nonsense has to occur, whether it's like an injury or 87 fights or all the goals and no defensive play, or the goalies just opting not to participate for 90% of the game. Like, they just can't play a normal hockey game. It's always this clown show circus dumpster fire that's going down a train with an 18-wheeler careening off a cliff. Like, it's just always a mess. And it felt like that. I mean, 2-0, then it's like 3-0 for a second, then it's called back, and then it's 2-2, and then it's 3-2, and then off we go back and forth. And it's like, holy crap. Like, can you guys just play a normal game?
Yeah, either have effort or don't, right? And that's through the whole first period. Like, the Habs, all credit to them, and I hate doing this, especially when Andrew's on here, but they were playing so hard, like right from the get-go. They were making really good passes, really good decision making. They had such good sticks through the whole game. Like their puck interception, the way that they were getting in the way of every single wave, every time the Leafs got into the zone. Like right at the beginning of the game, there was probably like at the beginning of the second, 4 times the Leafs made it into the zone, and then within 10 feet of the line, they turn it over because the Habs are just there and they're on top of them. Like the Habs played so good tonight. And honestly, that shootout could have gone any other way. Like I can't, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to it, but that game was just, I mean, what a way to start the season, right?
It's special. These two teams, they almost always seem to go to overtime. It's been years now that this has been the trend, right? It's been, even when the Habs were good and the Leafs were bad, they would go to overtime. When the Habs are bad and the Leafs are good, they go to overtime. They just play each other tight. And whether that's, the bad team carrying more than the good team, whichever team that is, right? They want to play spoiler for their historical rival. It just breeds fun hockey. I feel like this is such a fun way to start the season because there were 4 distinct momentum changes in this game, right? Like that's awesome. Sucks that it ended in a shootout, but what can you do?
Boo, the shootout. Boo.
Skills competition's not till January, you cowards. And that's the whole thing. Like even at the end of the game, the color commentary was saying, "Oh, I wish it would go longer on 3-on-3." And it's true. Like, but when it was 3-on-3 overtime, even though I can't believe the Leafs were able to kill off that penalty with a minute 47 to go. But to make it to overtime is like it shows that both teams to the end somehow cared, even though the first 25 minutes of the game the Leafs looked like they were still in bed from yesterday. So
except Nylander.
Yes.
Hey, everyone is trading William Nylander, okay? The amount of uncles in Ontario who traded William Nylander and nearly had a stroke when Timothy Liljegren turned the puck over. Like, I tweeted this, but if that's Justin Hall that turns the puck over, my podcast co-host might be dead. Like, the amount of uncles that would have been screaming at the top of their lungs in game 1 would have been incredible. Like,
yeah,
I kind of wanted the Leafs to lose just to see the chaos.
I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew. You look like you're ready to go.
I mean, it's always fun to watch the Leafs lose. I'm not gonna deny that. I think that overall they probably deserve to, they're the better team. We all know that, right? But yeah, it took a long time for them to wake up, except for Nylander. And you just can't do that. You can't take teams lightly in this league. And I think this is where I am with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. Like, obviously I'm not coming at it from a fan perspective, just as an outsider perspective. I look at the monumental decisions that the organization made this summer and what it looked like it was going to be before Dubas and Shanahan had their head-to-head and Dubas ended up getting canned.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this team and the attitude that they play with. And I know it's only one game, so I'm throwing out hot takes here, but I wonder if it's even possible for depth players to change the top guys. And I remember there was a moment in the summer, Mitch Marner was talking to a reporter. I don't remember what for. It was like some event that he was doing, a charity event.
It was the Marner Assist Fund where he I think he raises a bunch of money for underprivileged kids to play sports.
Obviously he's a great guy and that matters. But when he was talking about, there's however many other guys on the team, it's not just the big 4. I'm like, man, Mitch, you can't sit there and hold out and have an unprecedentedly expensive contract for a winger, change the entire structure of how wingers are paid in the NHL, and then say, well, it's kind of up to the other guys too. No, man, you got to step your shit up.
Yeah.
And you got to actually be a leader. And Matthews,
that comment,
in the regular season, yes, but they kept on talking in the broadcast about how Matthews has so many opening game goals. How many closing day goals does he have? And that's where I'm at with this team. Is I want to see them actually take that step and play when it matters. And the way they start games, still, I'm like, I don't know, you're not taking it seriously. You think you can just Harlem Globetrotters around teams, and sometimes it works, but not when it matters.
you know what, that you and I talked about this when he made that comment. I feel like you texted me or I texted you and we were like, what the heck is this? Because I have said this for years now, like going back to like when I worked with the Devils. So we're talking like 6 years now. If you are paid, if your salary starts with an 8 or more, I don't care what you do in the regular season. I don't even care if you play, frankly. If you are not elite from April 10th onwards, you are not worth your contract. And yes, players aren't paid in the playoffs, but when you're paying a player more than $8 million a year, you are paying him for the playoffs. And so, I mean, there was a behind the scenes reason for Matthews not scoring in the playoffs last year. And I think we can all see that that issue has been fixed. Some offseason and some medical attention will do that. But I look at it, and that Marner comment irked me, and I'm sure it irked you, Lauren. It's on the other guys. Nuh-uh, you make $11 million. It is firmly on you, Mitchell. Like, firmly. Now, I will say the added snottiness in the top 6, I think will give a different element with Bertuzzi and Domi. But I kind of agree with you, Andrew. I'm not sure you can change the stripes of the star players. However, I think Morgan Rielly has kind of proven he shows up when it matters all the time. William Nylander, kind of the same. And I feel like Austin Matthews is kind of getting there. When he's not hurt, he plays well. And he just has to stop playing through injuries.
I feel like they've taken steps in the last couple playoffs, right? Like you can see Marner's no longer that guy who's snake bit and can't get it done in the playoffs. He's producing points. I think to me, it's like those really crucial moments where you need a guy to just barrel through the defense and find that puck in front of the net. And it seems like of the top 4 guys that we're always talking about, it's only Nylander who consistently is like running off the tracks and trying to crash through things and just make things happen. And the other guys are just like, well, the puck will come to me and I'll make a play. And that works sometimes, but sometimes you have to force it.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with both of you. And that's something you can see when I watch different teams. Like if I take myself out of being a Leaf fan for a second, when I'm watching a game like the Habs and I watch how well connected they are, and they don't just like wait for things to happen. If there's nothing happening, they make moves and they move around. And that's something that I've noticed seasons previous, and even just tonight and in the preseason, because I went to a couple preseason games. I was lucky to go to a couple. There's a lot of time where the Leafs are puck watching their own guys because they're like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Whereas a lot of other teams, they'll at least keep their feet moving. And that's something that, like, some players on the Leafs have struggled with in the past. Like, obviously, Nylander, he's so frustrating, right? Because there's games where he gets benched because he just puts in no effort, and sometimes he just looks so off. But then he, in the playoffs, he does show up, and it's like, okay, well, it's a double-edged sword to some degree. And even Matthews, like he plays so well in the playoffs when he's not hurt. So is it a matter of keeping him not hurt? Okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we get more people that punch other people in the face so that maybe he doesn't get punched in the face as much, which seems great. Tonight, not going to lie, it's kind of nice seeing a Leaf come out and like knock boots with Arber Xhekaj and not think twice about it. Like there was no one to do that last year.
Oh my God, Arber Xhekaj, my son.
Yeah,
I freaking love that kid. Andrew, every time I'm on your show, we talk about Arber Xhekaj.
We have to. I mean,
like his mom started following me on Twitter.
The guy just is everywhere, and I made a point on Twitter that I was really impressed with him in this game, if it like his puck handling at the blue line, because he's always been really good at getting those pucks through the defense onto the net or like in and around the net. But it used to always just be like, I'm just going to fire it in, hope for guys to like win the puck on the rebound and knock it in or whatever. Tonight, he was making plays out there. And if he can continue to do that, he's a guy that I don't want to underestimate again. Because I remember when he first got signed by the Canadiens, and the way people were talking about him was just like, oh, this big goon, this face puncher. And immediately I was turned off. I was like, I don't want to give this guy the time of day. I don't need like another face puncher on the Canadiens. We're past that. But he's so much more. I don't know if he's going to be more than like a number 5 defenseman, but the advancement in his game, like game to game over the last season, has been incredible. I think he's the only player or only defenseman in NHL history who wasn't drafted in junior and wasn't drafted for the NHL and went straight from junior to the NHL.
What's crazy about Arber Xhekaj is, like you say, you hear he's a face puncher because he's just running dudes over in the OHL, like absolutely destroying guys on a daily basis. And you're like, man, we're trying to get better. We're trying to do a rebuild. Why are we doing face punching? However, if you are that good, and if you're as good as Arber Xhekaj is at clearing out the front of the net, at reading the play, at using your physicals tools to your advantage, and you're a face puncher,
that's plus.
I mean, that type of stuff goes for multiple first round picks at the trade deadline. Like, there are so many coaches, and I mean, as an analytics nerd, that might not be what I'm looking for, but there are so many coaches that, I mean, you look at some of the tougher coaches, right? Bruce Cassidy, Rick Tocchet, some of these guys, they see somebody like Arber Xhekaj and they're like, bring me that. Like, where is a capable defenseman that is also a face puncher? And that's why somebody like Ryan Reeves is a unicorn, because he's effectively Arber Xhekaj up front, a capable fourth line forward, never going to be anything else, and he's a face puncher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff that actually does lead to team toughness, right? Because you're not going to have like a Donald Brashear or a Georges Laraque take a shift with Austin Matthews, but well, you probably won't use Ryan Reeves either. But Arber Xhekaj, you can throw out there on defense, and maybe everybody feels a little bit bigger. And it's maybe a little bit true what they say about enforcers. Usually, maybe not so much when they're playing 5 minutes a night. But a guy who can actually take a regular shift and doesn't hurt your team in doing so, that's a welcome addition on my team anytime. I don't want to step on your toes, Lauren, but we should probably mention some of the new stuff happening at the end of the show.
Please.
All
I had it written down. I was going to talk about it, but please, you're so excited.
So as you guys know who are watching, we're always really interactive with the people watching the show, but we're going to change it a little bit this year. We will interact with you if you have questions on topic or comments that we see that we want to highlight on stream. But at the end of the show, there's going to be a segment just for you. We're going to do just like the presser on SDP. We're going to tell you multiple times, stick around. At the end of the show, you can ask questions and we will answer them. So we're going to have a presser at the end. Be patient. If you've got an off-topic question, hold it. We're not going to scroll back in the stream chat. Just wait for the end.
Yeah.
You can write it now if you want, but keep it in your head for the end and we will get to it. We'll get to a few anyway.
No. I have a question.
Can I also put it on Twitter.
Them like a hockey man?
Yeah.
Just looked at the most rudimentary, awful answers and then answer it seriously. I just want to be like one of those people.
Obviously, yes. Yeah, so you can either put them down in the comment box, you can put them in the chat, you can put them. I tweeted out in the middle of the third period there that we were going to be answering questions at the end of it. So yes, please do that. Also, if you're just joining us, I'm Lauren. On the right hand side is Andrew, and in the middle is our good friend Rachel. This is Game Over. Welcome. Crossover. We did the thing that Dr. Egon Spengler said not to, and we crossed the streams. So yes, welcome to Game Over. So yeah, it was a good game both ways. I mean, hey, it looks like Newhook is going to be a good addition to you. And also, as to what you're saying before, I had a question later, but you brought him up already, and I don't really want to bring him up again. So Arber Xhekaj is the one player outside of like the top line, obviously, that I would take from the Habs and I would stick him onto my team. So Andrew, if you could take someone from the Leafs, not in the top three, I'm saying not Austin Matthews, not Mitch Marner, someone that is in your bottom six or on like your bottom four defense pairings, who's it going to be? Oh, Rachel, God, you can answer too. You can answer both ways.
So it can't be like top six?
None of the core four. Can I say that?
Okay, yeah.
And it can't be like Morgan Riley either.
Yes. Matthew Nyes. He had a really rough game tonight, but I've watched him a fair bit now, and I think he is going to be a problem.
Yeah. That's an excellent answer. I did not get him in our fantasy team, in the SDPN Game Over fantasy team. He went super late, and I should have got him, and I feel terrible that I didn't. But that's an excellent answer. Rachel, what's your answer? You can go both ways or one way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think Arber Xhekaj would be the guy I would take for Montreal. If I'm Montreal going the other way, I think I'd probably opt for Tyler Bertuzzi, because he's sort of like a Brendan Gallagher-esque replacement, except less injury prone. But if we're completely removing the top six, you take Matthew Nyes, because he might not be top six in Toronto yet, But if you take him and you put him with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, that line is a capital P problem.
He would be the perfect complement on that line.
Yeah.
Like, he really would.
He would.
I was begging Sheldon Keefe to put out Fraser Minton and Matthew Nyes together in overtime. I don't know if either of you are like familiar with Fraser Minton at all, but Fraser Minton in OT in the WHL was such an issue that every time they panned to a coach once, I feel like it might have been the Red Deer guy when Fraser Minton went out, and he just went, because you just know, like, he just makes things happen. So I was kind of hoping he would get that opportunity tonight. Obviously, he's a literal child. He can barely sign his own permission form. But, like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Minton's been really good. I don't know how he played tonight. I didn't notice him a lot, aside from when the broadcast had a Fraser Minton shift counter at the beginning. I was like, can you calm down?
I know.
Like, let's chill a little bit. It's not Connor Bedard out there. Yeah. It's Fraser Minton. Leave him alone.
Did you see this stat last night with Connor Bedard? It's like Connor Bedard's first point. Sidney Crosby's like 1,504.
Did you see what they did tonight? Because Bedard scored his first goal, and they were like, Bedard won, Gretzky 894 or whatever it is. And it's like, chill. The broadcasters don't have to go that hard.
They're not even doing that for Ovi right now. So, like, pump the brakes a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong, Connor Bedard's going to be good, but he didn't score 4 goals in his opening game. That's all I'm saying. And Matthews got a hat trick tonight, so it was like I felt a little bit extra spicy with that. What's the opposite of salty? In a good way. Like,
sweet?
Bitter?
Yeah, no, it's like I don't know. I'll have to come up with some kind of different word for it, because being sweet would be the opposite, because I'm thinking of being really rude, and I'm not good. I'm not a good sore loser. Let me put it that way. Yeah. So definitely. I mean, the additions. So, what?
You're basically being a Karen, is what you're being.
I mean, is that what that is? I don't think so.
I feel like maybe.
I don't know. If you have the answer, please answer in the comment box.
Yeah,
I
let
would
us
love
know,
to know the term that
now
I'm
we need
thinking
to
of.
solve this.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll come up with a new word, and then we can copyright it, and we can all get rich. Haha. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy the Leafs won. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. The game was just so hard to talk about because it was so up and down the whole way through. Like, there were so many penalties taken on both sides, and so many power plays, and it felt so scattered through the whole game. It didn't really feel like a regular season game, and maybe that's the problem for the Leafs, is that it didn't feel like a regular season game. But I hope this isn't a sign of things to come from the Leafs, because, like, holy shit, man, we dealt with this enough last year where they would not show up for the first, like, 45 minutes of the game, and then show up in the last 15 minutes, make a game out of it, convince you to turn it back on just to lose 5 minutes later. Because that's how they played against Florida, and that's how they lost the second round series. They got lucky in the first round to some degree with Tampa, and that luck ran out for the second series. Like, that's what happened. And so I hope Keefe goes in and is just like, guys, like, what happened? Like, we had them on the ropes. We get 3 goals in a single period, and then what do? You lay a wet fart, and you let the Habs score, what, 4 goals in a row? 3 goals in a row?
I mean, hey, at least give it to him that he had the like guts to pull the goalie super early, and they actually made good on it. So there's that on it. And I'll also give Keefe credit that I had the 2 boys with me to start the game. They watched most of the first period. And when they were doing like the introductions and they were introducing all the like Toronto coaches, both of them were like, why do they all look so angry? And then Sheldon Keefe smiled and they're like, oh, okay, I like that one.
Yeah.
So has Dylan ever seen like a Montreal home opener? Because like, people make fun of Montreal, and
I don't think so.
Rightfully so. But the way Montreal does their home opener is actually unmatched.
No,
like,
it's great.
Match.
I have nothing but respect.
So sick.
I have nothing but respect for, like, the amount of tribute that the Habs give to the legacy and carrying the torch forward, and all of the history is like funneled and pumped into like the first game of the season. And it's one of the things that I really envy about the Habs. I can't believe I just said that, but it's true. Like, there are some things that you know the Habs do that the Leafs don't, that I wish my team did. You know, like, I wish that we paid better tribute to our people. Like, don't get me wrong. When it comes to, like, honoring our alumni and stuff, the Leafs do it just as good as anybody else. If you look at last year with the Boreas Salming and everything, the Leafs do have their strengths when it comes to it, but when it comes to like year in, year out, this is our season and we're going to do everything that we can to put a good product on the ice. The Habs always deliver, and it's like, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's really beautiful the way they do it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can get to be a bit much. I think people still make fun of them for like the long opening ceremonies from 2009, which is like, man, it's been 14 years. I think we can move on from the centennial year now.
Like,
yeah, they did start it in 2008. You're right. They did it for 2 years for the 100th anniversary because they're like, whatever, we'll just do it the whole year. But I mean, that actual centennial game, I don't know if you guys remember, but like, man, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So
that ceremony was worth every minute.
Oh, every single second. Yeah. Like, so cool. Watching Ken Dryden go out there and like carry Price's pads that were like way too small for him. It was hilarious. But yeah, really, really cool. It's cool when they do that stuff. I thought Toronto's was good tonight. It was like pretty quick, in my opinion. They didn't like stand on ceremony for too long, and that's good. It sucks when it takes forever and just drains all the energy out of the building. Maybe that's why they started slow, though, right?
They had the bagpipers there. I saw they posted it before. I just don't think they actually put it on the television.
The 48th Highlanders, yes, every single year. I mean, I think it's kind of like a cool tradition. I was attempting to set up my television in the new condo I moved into, and so I missed like the opening ceremony. I would have liked to have seen something coming into the season. Like if you look at what Buffalo's doing with Rick Jeanneret, they're honoring him all season, as they should, because he's arguably the most Sabre that there ever has been. Yep. I would have liked to see something tonight for Rodion Amirov, who passed away this summer.
Right.
I think obviously shocking. Recent first round pick, dies of brain cancer, completely tragic, obviously. Not even just like for the Leafs, but the hockey world, like a 20-year-old dies. That's terrible. So I would have liked to have seen something, and I'm kind of hoping that during Hockey Fights Cancer Month that we're using purple tape regardless of what the league rules say. Because something like that, where it's like it directly impacts the hockey club, I really would have liked to have seen them kind of do something there. I think that kind of would have been a nice thing to do.
Totally agree. That seems like a pretty big oversight, honestly, now that I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it before the stream, but if you're watching, then maybe you've noticed the fact that I happily saltily, threw some Pride tape on my water bottle tonight instead of a Habs Tears Post-it note. That's just for you, Andrew. I decided to go neutral aggressive instead of hardcore aggressive. So you're welcome.
Oh, see, I went hardcore aggressive. I went Toronto FC Pride jersey. I said Toronto and Pride.
Absolutely.
You won't catch me dead wearing an Impact jersey. There's no chance.
Well, I'm glad you're loyal, at least when it comes to your soccer club there. Now, we do have a couple of questions in the chat, but I had last year on the first game of the season, we asked a couple of questions. And just for kicks and yearly tradition, I would like to ask you two the same ones. So, what is your spicy take of the season? What is the one thing where you're like, this may not ever happen, but if it does, then I'm going to make someone very rich because the odds of it happening are just ridiculous. What is your spicy take of the season?
You first, Rachel.
Does it have to be like Leaf Hab related? Or
No. It can just be hockey related. It's the first game of the season. Anybody can win in October, Rachel. The possibilities are endless.
Elias Petterson wins the Selke is my hot take of the year.
Wow.
And yeah, I think he kind of wins the Selke. I also don't think he is a Vancouver Canuck past the end of next season.
I was going to ask if you thought he won that in a Canuck jersey, if it was going to be in another jersey.
Oh, I think he wins it in a Canucks jersey.
Okay.
I'm not sure that he wins another Selke after that in a Canucks jersey.
My spicy take is very similar, actually, Rachel.
Ooh,
my spicy take is that come July, Elias Pettersson is wearing a Montreal Canadiens jersey, who need a star player who happens to be the same age as Nick Suzuki and Kirby Dach, fit perfectly in their core, and they have a ton of cap space and a lot of mid-level assets that they could throw at Vancouver, who really needs depth. I'm saying, I'm reading tea leaves.
Do you know how much it would break my heart to have to get a Habs jersey? Because like, to give you an idea of like how much I like Petey, like as a human being, never mind a hockey player, he's a great hockey player, but like working with him on a daily basis and like as a human, obviously I got rid of all of my Canucks stuff. I kept 2 things: my black skate Elias Pettersson jersey and the hat, like the black skate hat that I got like pretty early on in my tenure. But it's all black skate, and the only thing I kept was my PD jersey. And I just like, the thing is they have the Sedins and Edler, like they have, and even Matthias Ohlins in their Ring of Honor. Like, so many Swedes have a history in Vancouver, and so I would love to see that continue. And as somebody who cheers for the Leafs, I don't want Elias Pettersson in the Atlantic Division. Screw that. But it would kind of be sick because you'd have 2 elite 2-way centers in Suzuki and Pettersson. And I mean, Pettersson becomes your 1C. It slides Suzuki down to 2. Like, now you're looking at a pretty serious depth at center. I would really like that for the Habs. And you're right, Andrew. They got the assets. They're one of the only teams, them in Arizona, but it's not like PD's going to Arizona. So
what would that trade look like? You
obviously
played armchair GM with that.
It would include, I'll tell you what, I would bet you each $100 that trade includes Arber Xhekaj.
It might. I think
wow.
It's almost impossible to pull it off without one of Suzuki or Doc, I would assume. Just because, like, you'd need... I would assume that Vancouver would need something that's NHL ready now to slot
Well, because
in.
they have... Yeah. They are not allowed to
they're competitors,
rebuild.
yes.
So, yeah, I think you're kind of looking at... If you're trading Elias Pettersson, unfortunately, if you're Montreal, there isn't really an untouchable, including Caulfield, because Elias Pettersson immediately becomes the best player on the team, like by a pretty fair margin. Now, I think if you can avoid giving up Caulfield, you do.
Mm-hmm.
But Vancouver covets Arber Xhekaj. They covet defensemen like him. So I think that's absolutely on the table. I think you're probably looking at Kirby Doc. I wonder if there's like an LTIR situation with Brendan Gallagher, maybe. I think there's a trade to be made, though, because Montreal does have assets that are ready now. Vancouver likes Alex Newhook. I know they just got him and signed him, but if you could do something, maybe it's Xhekaj and Newhook and a first, probably gets you Pettersson.
Wow. I would do that in a second.
like maybe?
Even if they
maybe
won the
not.
lottery this year, I think I would do that. Because, like, what are the odds, really, that one of the guys in this draft ends up being better than Pettersson? Like, Pettersson is so good.
He's so good.
If you don't get first overall, probably not very high.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Cole Yzerman. I like Ivan Demidov. But if you can get Macklin Celebrini, you take Macklin Celebrini.
Over Pettersson, you think?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Macklin Celebrini is like, he's, you know how there's like Matthews to McDavid?
Mm-hmm.
Celebrini is that to Bedard. He's that good.
Oh.
Yeah, he's really good.
Interesting.
Love it. What did you guys think of Juraj Slafkovsky tonight? Because he was a guy that until the last preseason game, people were all over thinking that he wasn't like really different from last year. His reads were still kind of slow. But the last preseason game against Ottawa, admittedly, they were iced an AHL team. But hey, who tries harder in preseason than AHLers? But he looked incredible. And I thought tonight he was absolutely on one. He was physical. He was winning puck battles. He had that spectacular assist on Newhook's first goal.
That was ridiculous.
I wonder if there's a lot of people who've thrown in the towel on an 18-year-old so quickly. This kid has a lot more going for him than I think even like Montreal fans believe.
I think that he looked really good. I think last season it's unfortunate that he got hurt. I mean, you guys got just eviscerated with injuries last year. Like it was wild, even from like a Leafs fan perspective. And like, don't get me wrong, I like watching you guys lose, but to some degree, I was like, okay, he's stop. He's already dead. Like it was really rough. And so, you know, I was a little bit worried that he wasn't going to look as good as he did because I didn't really see him a lot this preseason. Like, I think one of the preseason games I went to, the Habs did play, but he didn't. So I didn't see him in that game. And then I obviously, no offense, Andrew, I don't really watch Habs preseason games. But
I
just
mean, preseason of your own team is hard enough to stomach. Watching other
I
teams'
watched
preseason
a
games.
grand total of 0 preseason games.
I watched
I
them
love
all.
that for you.
I watched them all because I have an unhealthy love. That's why I'm sweating in my apartment in 25 degrees wearing a hockey jersey. Slafkovsky looked really good. He was really strong on the puck tonight. He was getting all kinds of bodies in the way. He had a really good stick. That assist to Newhook was fucking disgusting. And if that line continues to get the kind of chemistry that they have, then that line is going to wreck other teams' second lines, because it's only like the first game of the regular season and then those guys already look so good together. And he's 18, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm a different person than I was when I was 18. Like, when I was 18, I had hair down halfway down my back. I had a septum piercing. I did not look like I do. And you just change so much from the time you're 18, even to when you're 21 to 25 to 28 to 34. And it's early days, but if he keeps progressing and making steps like it looks like he has over the last, like, essentially 9 months from when he was injured, then he's going to be great. Like, as long as he doesn't get hurt again, because, like, he was not a first overall pick, but when Nick Robertson was drafted, it was like, this is Jason Robertson's little brother. And then, the developments of those two players is not exactly the same, but he had so many injuries and then COVID, and there was just so much turmoil in his training that even now people are like, oh, trade Nick Robertson, he's going to be nothing. And it's like, he's 20 years old, man. Like, stop it. And so for people to be doing that for an even younger player that has had even less opportunity is like, okay, just give the kid a chance. Like, you have to give somebody some runway to see if they can take off before you tell them the plane is down forever. Like, he looked really good tonight. And all you can do when you're that young is play game to game and play shift to shift and try to put yourself in the best position. And he got rewarded with it tonight. He didn't get a goal, but there was later on in the game, I think in like the third period, he got really close and hit a post. He hit a post and it was loud. And I think he's going to be really good. And I don't like it.
Yeah, I think Montreal Canadiens fans are like really nervous about the fact that it seems like the team has overthought both of the last two first draft picks. So they're just like, they're really worried about it. But I don't know. I think with Slafkovsky, everyone saw that Logan Cooley goal in Australia, right? And they were like, oh, okay, he's going to be the guy. It's not going to be Shane Wright. He's going to be the guy that makes Slafkovsky look like a terrible pick. But like, sometimes there's just a bunch of good players, and Slafkovsky is probably not going to have the skill level that Cooley has. Like, Cooley has a higher level of puck skills, but
he's the most skilled player in that draft.
Yeah, easily. And there are different kinds of skill, right? There's different kinds of play styles. So a direct comparison between them maybe doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, so the thing with Juraj Slafkovsky, and I would say this to Montreal fans, is, like, should he have gone first? No, absolutely not. But that happened. That's in the past. Don't evaluate him on whether he went first or not. Evaluate him on how he played last year and the steps he's making this year. And what I saw tonight, obviously extremely small sample size, I saw a lot of the Adam Nicholas sort of toolbox. So on that assist that Lauren, you brought up, his ability to take that puck, immediately shift his weight in one fell swoop and move it on his backhand to the open space, that's something he couldn't do last year, right? So you see that development. That is a tangible step in his offensive game that, hey, this kid has learned how to shift his weight and use his body to his advantage. That's a big boy too. So somebody of that size who is able to shift their weight and make those quick plays in tight, that's going to be a really valuable asset for him going forward. And so what I would caution is, don't evaluate him against Logan Cooley. That's not fair. Logan Cooley is a better hockey player. Like, Logan Cooley is Logan Cooley. Juraj Slafkovsky is running his own race.
Yeah.
And if you look at where he was last year to the steps he's taken already, just to be able to do that little thing, that shows me that he's still developing. And like you guys laid out, he's 19. Like, if you're below 22, if you are below 22, I do not want to hear the word bust, because like that, it's not relevant. Like, you literally haven't had enough chances. And even at like 22 is like still kind of young to be saying that. And so what I would say is, like, chill, everybody relax. If he puts up 10 points this year, then yeah, by all means, I mean, like, that's not ideal. But at least in game one, I noticed things that he was able to execute that he wasn't able to execute last year. And from a development perspective, I think that's a massive positive. And I think that that's something Martin St. Louis will recognize and look to build on, because he's exactly that kind of coach. It's exactly the coach Slafkovsky needs, that Newhook needs. They all need a coach that is going to be able to do that for them. And so to see those steps, I think if he continues to build on that and follows this trajectory, he's going to be a pretty solid middle six player for Montreal. And like, hey, that's fine. Not every first overall pick is going to be Connor McDavid.
Yes,
in fact, true. The Oilers messed up multiple first overall picks, like all of them except 1 and 2, actually, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah. You think the Taylor Hall was a bad pick? You would have taken Sagan?
No, but they messed up trading him for Larson.
Yes. Okay. Point take.
He promptly won a Hart Trophy after that. Like, get that you screwed that up.
Jake in the chat says Habs on pace for 0 wins this season, which is just hilarious.
That's right.
Austin Matthews on pace for 212 goals or something like that.
Yeah. And I think when we go back to like that decision from the Montreal Canadiens, as much as we're like, I think you look at Logan Cooley and his player type and his skill level, and you say, this is going to be probably the best player out of that draft at this stage. Maybe David Juracek will take over best player. We don't know. But I think the Canadiens also look at Slafkovsky and say, he might not be as good overall as Logan Cooley, but he might be the more rare player type. Like, I made this point a lot last season in terms of like comparing Arber Xhekaj to Jordan Harris. Jordan Harris has a much more complete, refined game right now than Arber Xhekaj. But if you put both of them on the trade block, you're going to get 5 times as much for Arber Xhekaj compared to Jordan Harris, because Arber Xhekaj is just a much more rare player type.
It's the intangibles.
That's how Eric Goodbranson got 4x4 last summer. Like, that's how we ended up here. Arber Xhekaj, if he's in free agency next summer, it is just bring a Brinks truck with you, because like that's what he's. And does he deserve that money? Like, is he good enough? No, absolutely not. But you are worth what the market says you're worth, and there are GMs, and I could name a few of them, that would be lining up to pay Arber Xhekaj like $5 million to be their bottom pair defenseman. Like, they just, because you'd rather on your bottom pair, a lot of GMs would rather have a guy like Arber Xhekaj than Jordan Harris, because he brings that tough cross-checks dudes in front of the net, rah-rah, sis-poomba stuff that you all both know what I'm referring to. And I think you make a great point. Slafkovsky might be a more rare player type. Logan Cooley, it has rarer skills. And right. I think those are different, right? Brad Marchand is a rare player type. He is a POS that is also incredibly talented and probably going in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And also like hit his peak in his 30s, which is super weird.
Age doesn't matter on the Boston Bruins, apparently. Patrice Bergeron won the Selke and was like, you know what? I'm actually done.
He just faded like that.
Like, if Patrice,
the guy just evaporating.
If Patrice Bergeron says, I want to come play for Montreal, I've changed my mind, he's immediately their best player, no?
Yep.
Like, he's just...
If we do that, I'm not doing games for the rest of the season, just letting you know.
Well, I don't know if Ken Hughes has that much magic. Although I think you can read the tea leaves on Xhekaj's next contract, and you can see Ken Hughes being like, look, Arber, like, remember, we discovered you. Nobody drafted you. So it was us. And look, we drafted your brother. He's in the organization. We love how nice we're being. Wouldn't you like to just sign the smallest contract you can think of? Like, wouldn't that be nice?
Go the Timmy Stutz route.
They're already looking at that down the line and saying, like, let's not make that a problem.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy to look at someone that's been in the league for 1 year and be like, this is the better player. But so Leafiest Outcome in the chat said, I think it's just fun to give Habs fans a hard time about Slafkovsky. Like the league was giving us a hard time about how Matthews over Laine, and look how that turned out. And it's true. When they drafted Matthews over Laine, some people were like, what are you doing? You took the worst player. And even though, like, at the beginning,
they were promptly wrong.
Yes.
They were wrong before the season even started. Yes. As soon as that World Cup happened in North America, everyone was like, oh.
And then, like,
that's
game
not
one
a boy,
of the
that's a man.
Yes. And that's just it, right? Like, it's easy to have this world's smallest sample size and say, well, this is the best player of a generation. And it's like, you have to give someone at least like a high school length of time before you decide on if they're good or not, like all the way through. Like, one season like does not make a player.
Yeah, there's a few players where like that can be excused, and like McDavid, Bedard, Matthews. But I feel like generational gets thrown around way too often, right? Alex Ovechkin is a generational goal scorer.
Yes.
He literally doesn't do anything else.
No.
He's a generational goal scorer. He's the best goal scorer of all time. Sidney Crosby is a generational player. Yes. Erik Karlsson is not a generational player. He is a generational defenseman who has then been followed by Cale Makar, right? Austin Matthews is not a generational player. That's Connor McDavid.
Yes.
Connor Bedard is a generational player, and they happen once every 7 or 8 years, so this is kind of right on the cusp. Matthews is going to be the Ovechkin in terms of like generational goal scorer, but he is absolutely not the best player in the NHL during his time frame. Cale Makar is completely revolutionizing how teams have to play defense against defensemen, but he's not McDavid. There's one player per generation, and it's McDavid. Like, that's just that's the end. And I feel like we could say elite, we could say franchise player. There's a ton of franchise players. Well, there's not a ton. There's like 14 or 15. There's one generational player.
Oh, I got to run something by you guys because it's just too good. Adam Dyer says on Twitter, they're calling the dock line New Kids on the Dock.
I approve.
I love
12
it
out of 10.
so much.
I approve.
12 out of 10.
I have no vote because I'm a Leafs fan, but I approve.
Just stamp of approval immediately. It's done.
Yeah,
that's the new nickname.
No, we have to end this.
And if
get better than that.
If Martin St. Louis changes the line, revolt immediately.
Right?
Well, yeah, it's probably gonna happen at some point, but yeah, I actually did. I like the top 6 overall for Montreal tonight. Josh Anderson, I think, is not the long-term fit on that top line, but I thought he looked good tonight. He always does against Toronto. Didn't score, but pretty strong game from him. But what made me sad watching tonight was Brendan Gallagher. Last year when he started out healthy, he looked all right. He wasn't scoring, but he looked all right. He looks slow, and Tanner Pearson looks slow, and with Monahan, they make Monahan look slow. And that line, like, they've got to flip that. Maybe Ullinen and Harvey Pinard move up, and Gallagher and Pearson move down the line.
Or maybe you split the speed, right? You have Gallagher on one line and you have Pearson on the other. I think Tanner needs, actually Gallagher too. They were injured for so long. Tanner Pearson wasn't even able to exercise because he had an infection because of things. So I think maybe we cut them some slack, and it's like, okay, you know what? If a player who wasn't going through like life-altering injuries gets up to speed in like the first few games, maybe it takes Pearson and Gallagher like 5 or 10 games because they went so wrong. But yeah, like Pearson's never been a foot speed guy. Gallagher, he's old, right? Like there was a point where I actually thought that there was going to be a trade between Montreal and Vancouver for Gallagher because he's from out there. And he's kind of at the point where we wonder if he's going to play anymore. Like I feel like we might be one Brendan Gallagher injury away from him hanging them up kind of thing, or LTIR. Yeah. And that's really unfortunate. I've loved watching Brendan Gallagher. I think he's another super rare archetype of player, and it sucks, but I think maybe we give them a little bit of slack to kind of get up to speed. 1, they're old, and 2, catastrophic injuries.
Yeah, you got to give them some time to figure it out, but it wasn't a good look tonight. I think that you're right that you'd have to split them up, right? I understand the idea of it. Like you put Monahan with those 2 guys, and it's kind of like your veteran line that is safe and maybe can pop a couple of goals, but I'm not seeing that line. That's the one line tonight that I was like, yeah, that's not going to work.
And it's unfortunate because honestly, for so long, I really did think that Brendan Gallagher was just like the quintessential Hab. Like he was everything I hated against playing. He had attitude. He was good. He was fast. He was hard on the defense. He was good on the forecheck. Like I hate playing against Brendan Gallagher. And honestly, when they announced the new captain of the team, I was actually kind of surprised that it wasn't Brendan Gallagher, just because I associate the Habs like to me, it would be weird to see Brendan Gallagher in another jersey because he's just he's just like the lifeblood. When I think of a Hab, that's the face that I see. When I think of the Bruins, I see Brad Marchand. It's the same thing. And so it's unfortunate to like see somebody that isn't super old, like just be so riddled with injuries that the decision to some degree isn't up to them. Like it is still, because he's still playing and stuff, but like you said, like, you know, you're a bad ankle roll away from maybe not being able to get back on a pair of skates the same way. And it is unfortunate. And it's as a Leaf fan, yay, but also like just as a hockey fan, like it's sad. Like it's the same thing with like Jake Muzzin, just like, oh, I have to retire now because I'm so injured. He's like my age and he's like, oh, I can't play anymore. And I'm like, oh my God.
And I might not be able to do things like, if you look at like what happened to Ryan Kessler, like can't play with my kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, what are we doing here? Like it's so, but this is like Brendan Gallagher's player archetype kind of lends itself to these kind of injuries, right? We've seen that with guys like Jake Muzzin who play really tough. Like enforcers have shorter careers for a reason. Like Ryan Reeves is the unicorn. Tom Wilson is the unicorn.
Yes.
Like they're able to have that longevity, but that's rare. When you play that kind of rough and tumble grinding game, things crop up, a back, a groin, a concussion, like a
wrist,
hip injury.
A shoulder.
Yeah, like it's tough on your body. And Brendan Gallagher's had some bad luck too. Like his first game back, didn't he get like a broken finger, like right off the hop just because somebody hit him with a slap shot? Like things like that too. That's not so much being injury prone. That's just like, that's a bad bounce. Like Cody Glass yesterday got hit in the face with a slap shot. It's like, how do you, that's not injury prone. That's like somebody shot a puck 100 miles an hour and it hit me in the head. Like,
yeah. And then
that happened to Gallagher a couple times. He broke his hand blocking a shot, and then he came back, and like 3 or 4 games later, Shea Weber bombed one and broke his same hand that he'd just had surgically repaired. And that was like the beginning of the decline. And then it's just been like, ever since the cup run, it's just been like groin injury. And I find with hockey players, as soon as there's like cumulative groin injuries, unless they take a long time off and rehab it well, it's not a good sign.
I've been thinking about this. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Thought about this over the summer because I was having a conversation with somebody about Carey Price. Did that cup run ruin, like in terms of longevity wise, the careers of Brendan Gallagher and Carey Price? Like, did the Habs rely on them too much?
Yes, 100%. Shea Weber, Carey Price, Paul Byron, Brendan Gallagher, all basically never played the same ever again. Yeah.
Like that cup run, sure. Like you got that cup run, but
I mean, that's why when you go back and look at the footage, look how broken they are when they lost, right? Like they put in so much of themselves into that cup run. They really thought they were like the team of destiny. And then all of a sudden Tampa was like, actually, we're way better. Just crushed them. And it was like absolutely devastating, right? So I think emotionally it crippled them.
Their team.
And physically they sacrificed so much that they just could never get back to where they were.
It broke. Carey Price's back, similar to Henrik Lundqvist, deteriorated from promptly carrying his team for a decade.
Yeah, I remember the end of that series, and I remember, and this is weird for me because I don't usually remember things like this. I remember the look on Shea Weber's face. Do you know what I'm talking about? The shot when he was like bent over and he was like red faced, and I was like, that is a man's man, and he is on the verge of breaking down. Like, it was.
And he did. He cried, right? And you could see if you watch it now, like he starts to lose it, and it's like all of the Canadiens come over and start hugging him, right? Like they know it was the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
like
it's got to be a rough way to go to like end
him
your
and
NHL
Price.
career.
Like they basically like that's it, right?
Yeah.
It sucks. Like as a hockey fan, I love watching Shea Weber play. I loved watching Carey Price play. Damn, as a Canadian, losing Carey Price, like that stings. Like Carey Price got us an Olympic gold. Like he is, as much as people are like, oh, Carey Price is overrated this, Carey Price overrated that. It's pretty hard to argue like that when a team who perpetually underperforms needs somebody to be the spine. he was the guy.
Always.
Right? So I think to see Weber, like you said, to see Weber, Price, Gallagher, that cup run effectively ruined the Habs. Like it broke them.
Yeah.
I think anybody who thinks that Price was overrated should look at like the goal support that he had in Montreal, not just in the regular season. The best one is look at his goal support in like elimination games, whether they won or lost.
It's like 0.75.
It is. It's like under 1.
Yeah.
And he won like half of them or more. And it's like, man, this guy's a hero. But I digress.
Yes.
Should we get to some comments or some questions from the chat?
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of... I scrolled up, there wasn't a lot. So we should probably actually wrap up the stream anyway. We're close to an hour here.
Yeah, I mean, we can give them an opportunity to...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, you told them to wait till the end. And
That's true. That's true.
They were good and
please
they
leave your questions. If you are still watching, please leave your questions. While that's happening, I'm going to ask you guys really quick. Who is your way too early cup final? Way too early cup final.
Edmonton and Carolina, an 06 rematch.
Okay, Rachel. I'll give you mine. We have a second. I think it's Edmonton, New Jersey. I think New Jersey could go to the final. Sorry.
Sorry, oh my God. That would be, honestly, I'd be so happy for so many people in that organization.
Even though Edmonton fans would be so insufferable. Oh my God.
Oh my Lord.
I mean, who amongst us is not insufferable when your team makes it to the end, you know?
I just want to point out, if the Leafs ever make a cup final, your CEO might be the most insufferable man on the internet, and he will deserve it. He will deserve every shot that he can take. And honestly, I think Leaf fans are fine with like people taking shots at them because they know if the Leafs were to ever get back there, the absolute unloading that would occur would be just monstrous. Like, it would be insane. Even like last year, like they freaking partied in the streets after one win. Winning the cup? Get out of here. Like, it'd be ridiculous. But my cup final, I'm going to go Dallas, Carolina. I think Dallas is best equipped.
That's the West. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, I like Dallas too.
Okay, well, we do have some questions now. Thank you, everybody, for sending your questions. Thoughts on Domi tonight? I think he looked okay. There was a couple shifts where he looked really good. There were a couple shifts where he looked not as good. He laid a couple hits that were really nice. He got in a couple good passing lanes. He didn't produce as much as I was kind of hoping he would. But there was actually, the thing I noticed more about that line tonight was actually, it was because of Domi, but not, in a good way, but not a good way, because at one point him and Nylander like scurried down the ice and John Tavares is like lagging behind. It was kind of sad. It was the only time in the game where I was like, oh, John, oh no. And he didn't look
like
good.
An old dad.
I know, but he's like, come on. So I thought he looked good. What do you guys think?
Domi, I've watched him enough as a Canadian that I have a strong opinion of him. I think when he has the puck on his stick through transition, he's a fantastic player and really fun to watch. In his own zone or without the puck in general, he's atrocious. Like, I don't know if it's a care level thing. I think he's one of the worst defensive players in the league. And I don't remember which goal it was, but there was one that it was like straight up Domi just turning the puck over, not like being too casual in his own zone. And I think that was the goal that tied the game for the Canadiens in the third period.
The new hook goal?
It was that one or the one they took a lead. He's just too casual. You know,
Yeah.
He wants to fly the zone too early. And when he has the puck in the defensive zone, he just doesn't make good decisions. So that's my view of Domi.
Yeah, I feel like that's an appropriate view for how he played in Montreal. Like, that's entirely accurate. I think, and this was kind of my prediction when he signed originally, when you have somebody like Max Domi, whose father played for the club, who grew up here, who understands what it's like to wear the crest, there is an intrinsic pressure that comes with that. What I will say is, I think it's far too early to be evaluating him in a Leaf uniform, but I did notice that line was it seemed like they were much better at retrievals. It seemed like they were quicker to pucks, and Nylander is always quick to pucks, but it seemed like adding Domi there instead of Kerfoot, there were better decisions being made. There were better plays with the puck because the puck on Alex Kerfoot's stick is basically where the puck goes to die. Like my co-host almost had a stroke last year watching that. So having somebody like Max Domi, I think that the defensive kinks will sort of be worked out because the Leafs are a really good defensive team. And so I think that'll sort of kind of work itself out. But I do like that he brought that speed element, that snotty element. He is going to be a pest. He doesn't have to be Brad Marchand. He doesn't have to be what Brendan Gallagher was in his peak. He just has to be annoying enough to pull attention away from Nylander. And Nylander was, I think he had like 6 shots tonight. Like I thought Nylander was fantastic. And I think part of that was because the ice was opened up for him by what Max Domi was doing.
Well, and he's more of a threat than Alex Kerfoot is.
Oh, absolutely. I think Max Domi, like one thing that you cannot ever take away from him is he is a splendid playmaker. Like his passing game is so good.
Which is why he's stapled to Tavares and Nylander.
Right? It makes sense, you know, and, you know, Nylander can help him out a little bit in the neutral zone defense, at least, you know, keep it from creating too much in-zone play. Even, did you guys watch that little TikTok that the Leafs did where it was like Marner trying to roll a quarter into a fork?
Yes.
And even in that little thing, you know how good of a playmaker Marner is. And when Domi came over, he like right away almost got like, he is shockingly good with the puck.
His hockey sense, I mean, maybe when your uncle is Matt Sundin, you're around the game, you learn how to read the game better than like most other people. But yeah, like I think that's going to be super beneficial, right? I think the effort thing you brought up is a really great point. And I do wonder, and this was something that I kind of thought when he was signed, was he needs to get his feet under him. But then is he one of those guys that is willing to go that extra mile, similar to kind of how Zach Hyman did, because the crest means more to him, his family, like that kind of thing? Like I can tell you, working for other NHL teams, I've said many times I don't want to work in the NHL anymore. If a certain hockey club came calling, that answer would change, and it would only change for that hockey club because there is something intrinsic about your home club. It just means more. And I think you might see that with Max Domi as he gets his feet under him. He's willing to take that extra stride on the back check. He's willing to dig in and get that puck out in the defensive zone because of the uniform he's wearing.
100%.
Absolutely. Andrew, do you have a question picked out? You look like you're scanning through them.
Yeah, there was a good one. Jake the Snake asks, when should Gallagher be bought out when the Canadiens are pushing for the playoffs? I think this is, like, we kind of talked about Gallagher already, but unfortunately, I feel like this is a sad answer. I feel like Gallagher is not going to get traded and he's not going to get bought out. It's going to be LTIR. Yep. That's going to be I don't think he's going to last that contract. He's
the saddest, quietest goodbye.
Yeah, it sucks. You don't want to see any player end their career like that, but it does happen to many. It's a rough sport.
And even like, it's not like Montreal, like we're not talking about Arizona here. They can afford the full weight of Price's contract. They can afford the full weight of Weber's. They can afford the full weight of Gallagher's. You don't need to buy him out. You use that money for LTIR, especially when you're contending, which is where the Habs will be when this money starts to matter. Having LTIR pool money, hello Tampa Bay, it works. Like,
does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
SDPN, team goal song or individual goal songs?
Team.
Yeah,
I like the idea of the individual goal songs, like just as a concept.
Yeah,
but it doesn't work as well in practice as I think you want it to, right? Yeah, fans don't unless if Austin Matthews has an individual goal song, yeah, because you're gonna hear it 70 times a year.
Yeah,
that's great, but
Arber Xhekaj doesn't need his own goal song.
No, you don't need to hear Arber Xhekaj's goal song 5 times a year. Actually, he might score more than that. He's a pretty decent shot. But I mean, hey, did you see him shoot a puck through the net with a wrist shot that deflected? I still don't know how he did it. That's crazy. There was another good question here for Rachel asking what she thinks of Kaden Guhle. Like, what's her projection from King of the North?
What do I think of Kaden Guhle? I think he's going to be one of the best defensemen in the Atlantic Division for a very long time. I think Charlie McAvoy, Victor Hedman, like we're talking about the elite of the elite, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power. I think Kaden Guhle is going to be in the tier just below them. I think he's that good. he's going to be an impact. And I don't think Montreal is going to rush him. I really like the approach they've taken with him. He is going to be that physical, really awful, basically a better Eric Cernak.
Okay.
Kind of
better
thing.
Eric
So imagine
Cernak.
Eric Cernak, but
like
if Eric
Cernak.
Cernak was top pair.
No, I love Eric Cernak. I just,
Yeah, that's a good
I don't want
comparison.
to, I don't want to imagine that. Oh God.
Yeah,
Another
so
Eric Cernak
and
to deal with.
Why you gotta be like
the
that?
other thing is before long, he'll be wearing a letter. That guy
Oh, yeah.
bleeds leader. Like even in junior, he's leading the charge to go into schools and talk about like anti-bullying and like inclusivity, things like that. Like he's a leader through and through on and off the ice. He is going to have a letter. I wouldn't even surprise me if he has a letter next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, somebody was saying, what about Arber Xhekaj with a fight song? I mean, I think the Canadians already do that. If he gets in a fight on home ice, they play X gonna give it to you.
Oh my God.
Okay, that's
great.
Awesome. I'll
That's-
allow that.
Yeah,
fantastic,
that's
right?
pretty good. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. So we should probably wrap this up unless there's any more questions anyone wants to get to.
No, I think that's good. We can't answer a billion, right?
No,
we don't want to
no.
keep everyone here forever.
Absolutely
and
not.
We all need to sleep.
For sure. And obviously, after tonight's show, we have other game overs happening. We have 2 more head-to-heads with the Jets playing host to the Flames, and the Canucks are currently kicking the snot out of the Oilers. It's 4-0.
What?
Let's go.
Brock Besser, Hattie,
Brock Besser hat trick.
right?
McGee's is predicted to get no goals this year. So make sure you guys go check those games out. We also have Game Over Ottawa, who unfortunately lost to the Carolina Hurricanes earlier. So please make sure you go check out all of our other game overs we are going to be on this week and every single game for the rest of the season.
Like the show.
Yes, like, subscribe, make sure you share it. If you enjoy this stream, please come back. Like I said, we are live after every single hockey game in the Canadian market. There's a different team for everybody. I was lucky enough to be asked by Andrew to come on tonight's stream. So Andrew, thank you for asking me. This has been Game Over Toronto, the very first crossover stream. Great success with minor technical difficulty to start it off. But I am Lauren Williamson. You can find me on Twitter at Lauren6. Andrew, where can people find you?
Oh, at Andrew Berkshire, pretty much everywhere. I'm trying to go on all the different social medias and threads and Blue Sky as much as I can this year. I'm going to decide which ones I actually like at some point. I might have to cut Twitter. It's probably the most annoying one.
And I have to get TikTok. That's still a thing I have to do. Rachel, obviously you're at Rachel Dory on Twitter, but where else can we find you? Because you have your hands on all kinds of different honeypots.
Yeah, the Staffing Graph podcast, the BetMGM Action Show, BetMGM Inside the Lines if you like football. I'm the lead betting girly pop for the hockey news. So I'm actually putting out my model similar to what Don Lustrition used to do a few years ago. And
Nice.
I am Sporty Girl Math on TikTok because of course I am.
I love that. Okay, well, like I said, it is Game Over Toronto. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. If you like hockey and you know somebody that likes hockey, bring them on around next time and we'll make sure to answer your questions. Have a great night, everybody. Leafs win. Woo! Suck it, Habs!